Perfect. Thank you. Hello and welcome. We're really excited, and I'm glad that the Edge team has hosted us to be able to give you a little bit more information on BigQuery and the connection to Google Sheets in BigQuery. Last time we did a Sheets demo, we briefly talked about everything that BigQuery can do for us and how we can actually expand our spreadsheets and make them much more powerful. So today we're going to do a deeper dive, and we're really excited to have some of your colleagues from the state here showing us how we can actually get data into BigQuery. And then after that, I'm going to show us, hey, now that it's in BigQuery, I don't know how to write SQL. So what do we do with it? And I'm going to show you how to connect it into Google Sheets and how to make the best out of all that information. So before we go forward, I'll introduce myself again really quickly. My name is Ryan Allred. I'm with CVE Technologies Group. We help to maintain the Google Workspace licensing here at the state of Utah, as well as some of the GCP environments and those sorts of things. So we also have Ala with the Enterprise Solutions team, and she's going to come up here and talk to us about how we get data into BigQuery. So if you want to come on up, we'll get that going. So give us a second while we get our computers all plugged in. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ella Chernenko. I am with Cloud Solutions for the state. We are your friendly team for all things cloud. I am going to talk a little bit about BigQuery. Mostly I'm here so that you know that I'm a real person and you can ask us questions. After this talk, you can shoot us an email, you can put in a ServiceNow ticket, and we can help you get set up with your cloud journey. I'm ready to start my thing. There we go. All right, getting started with BigQuery. How do we do that? And that's my name and today's date. Yay. All right, so if you're used to working with spreadsheets, be it Excel spreadsheets, be it Google Sheets, if you're not already a database professional, you might be wondering, why should I be using BigQuery? Why should I be going through the work of putting my data in there? Why can't I just have files on my computer or files in my Google Drive? And there are several reasons why BigQuery might be a good fit for you. First of all, it offers better performance for larger, complex data sets. So yes, if you're working with just a handful of records, BigQuery is probably an overkill for you. However, when you start getting into thousands or tens of thousands of records or more than that, BigQuery is really going to be more efficient than just your typical spreadsheet solution. BigQuery also allows for a more streamlined data organizations, permission management, and metadata storage. So you probably run into, if you are dealing with a large number of files, you've probably run into issues where you attempt to organize them into folders, into directories. The structure gets away from you, especially if you have multiple team members or you have folks leaving your organization and new folks coming to replace them. The file structure can get unwieldy. You start losing things, naming conventions drift away. BigQuery helps you solve that, helps make that more efficient. It also makes data sharing and sharing exactly the data you want down to a single column really easy, and it makes it really easy to also see who has access to what in your data, so it gives you additional security. And finally, the metadata storage capabilities that Google Cloud and BigQuery have allow you to simplify things like onboarding new team members, because you can record information about the different columns in your data in the same tool that you store the data in. And so for a new person to get acquainted with the new information, that just becomes a breeze. And finally, BigQuery allows you for allows for doing advanced analyses with SQL, if that's something you're into. If your analytic demands are greater than what a spreadsheet allows for, BigQuery is your guy. while still allowing you to use spreadsheets, as we will see later today. I have a quick demo about how you might add data to BigQuery, and you'll see it's super duper simple. So this is my BigQuery environment, and you too could have one of those, and I'll tell you how at the end of my little bit of the presentation. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to find BigQuery in my Google console, and I look for BigQuery a lot, so it comes up as a popular search for me. And I end up with an interface that looks something like this. Here on the side, I have my projects, and I always have BigQuery public data highlighted, which is really cool. It's a repository where multiple state, federal, and private entities share their data, make it public access, so you can fiddle with it, or even possibly use it in your work, depending on your field. I know some weather data are in there and stuff like that. So I have already pre-created a data set called the Sheets Workshop, and we're going to add a table to that, just so you can see how simple that is. So what I'm going to use to build this table is a CSV file that I already have on my computer, which you probably also have on your computer. I'm going to click on Create Table. It's going to give me an option to create from empty table. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to get a drop down with all the different options for creating a table. You can explore what they are. I'm going to go with Upload, and then I'm going to select a file from my computer. We happen to be in the correct directory. I'm going to pick iris.csv, which that's a little Easter egg for you if you're familiar with R. That's a training data set. It's about flowers. And I'm going to call that table Iris. I'm going to say auto-detect schema, and what that means is that it will figure out what the column names are based on the contents of the CSV file. I'm not going to mess with additional settings because really my task is really simple. And I'm going to go ahead and create. And now we see I have my little table pop up. And if I click into that, I can preview the data, and they look like this. And it's basically a spreadsheet, right? You could do some transformations on it within BigQuery. You could join it with other data sources, or you could pull it into your connected sheets and go from there. So super simple. Hopefully not very scary, and hopefully that got you all riled up to start trying BigQuery, and maybe, just maybe, you're wondering, how do I get started with trying BigQuery? And if I can figure out how my computer works, I will tell you. A way to get started with BigQuery at the state of Utah is to reach out to us, our Enterprise Cloud Architecture and Development team. There's our email. We are dtscloudsolutions@utah.gov. I'm sure this will also be shared with the attendees after the workshop. Because State of Utah is an enterprise, there are a couple of barriers for you, right? Because we don't want users to just creating their own BigQuery or Google Cloud projects, but my team is here to help you figure out if Google Cloud and BigQuery in particular is a right fit for you. And if it is, do everything possible to enable you to use it effectively. And yeah, generally help you on your way, answer questions, stuff like that. So please reach out to us. We're really nice and helpful. That's all I got for today. And I'm going to pass the mic back over to you.
Okay, so not all of us know SQL, and I get that. It's difficult. It's a whole thing, right? We don't always work in big data sets. And oftentimes we want to be able to work with big data sets and the tools that we're used to using, right? So I would imagine the vast majority of us have used Google Sheets in the past. Google Sheets has what's called connected sheets. And a connected sheet is the ability to basically look in to the data that you've put into BigQuery and actually work with it through Google Sheets, right? So I'll show you what that looks like in a second, but just so you can understand the scale that you can work at, the data set that we're going to be pulling has like 2.2 million rows. If you tried to do that in a normal spreadsheet, I mean, it might work, but it's going to be awfully slow. You're going to see that we're querying huge data sets, and in the back end, that work's being done in BigQuery instead of in Google Sheets, but it's displaying it here for you in Sheets in a native tool that you use every day, right? So once we've worked with the DTS Cloud Solutions team to get things into BigQuery, if you don't know SQL and you're not comfortable working out of that, not a problem. We're going to show you tools that are going to be something you've seen every day and how you can actually interact with that data. So we no longer need to be scared of huge data sets. We can keep everything together and then pull it as we need it. So with that, I'm going to share my screen. And I'm going to start with an apology. Normally, I have a little application that every time I click, it shows exactly where I've clicked, and I can highlight things for you guys. I checked as soon as this demo started and realized my license had expired like 4 days ago. So I will amend that for next time. But for now, hopefully you were able to see my screen here as I'm clicking around. I'll try and guide you with my voice. If you missed something, I am sorry. The video is being recorded, so if you missed something, feel free to hop back in and take a look again. Or if you just want more, a slower pace, that's not a problem either. Okay, so with that, I've just got a spreadsheet open. It's a blank spreadsheet. And I'm going to name it because that's what we should do. And I'm going to call it Bike Share. So from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you where that BigQuery connection lives. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Data. I'm going to scroll all the way down to Data Connectors. Okay? And we've got a couple options. We've got BigQuery and we've got Connect to Looker, right? We're not going to touch on Looker today, but it's another phenomenal tool. And if you guys are interested in seeing it, we would love to show it to you. So right now I'm going to connect to BigQuery. Now this view gives you all the projects that you have access to. So your view is going to be different than my view, and literally every person's view could be different, right? Based on how these security settings can be applied. I'm going to hop into the State of Utah demo, and I didn't actually put a data set in because Google makes a lot of data sets publicly available for us. So I'm going to go find that public data set that I want to use for today's demo. It is Austin Bike Share and Trips. Okay, so basically what I went through is I found my project that I want to work within, then I found the data set, and now I'm actually pulling the Bike Share Trips. And I'm going to hit Connect. So it's going to take a second to connect, but if you can see here, we've got 10 columns and 2.3 million rows in this particular data set. So this is bigger than what we're working out of in spreadsheets, a lot bigger. And this is by no means the most that we can do in BigQuery. It was just a convenient data set for me to show you guys some of these features. Also, the first time you connect, I highly recommend watching this tutorial video. It's 13 minutes long. It's going to cover things that I didn't cover because it's better than me and it's really edited, and it comes directly from Google. So if you do get to this point and you say, hey, some of the things Ryan showed me are cool, feel free to watch that video because it's amazing. All right. And I am actually going to zoom out a hair. So I want you guys to notice that down here I've got sheet 1 at the very bottom left, and then I've got Bike Share Trips, and it's got that little database icon next to it. That database icon tells me that's where we're actually pulling information directly from the database, right? So anytime you connect to BigQuery through Sheets, it will create a new sheet with all of that data. Now, it's not going to show me all of the data, right? We said it has 2.3 million rows. By default, it's going to show me 500 rows, right? Still a significant amount of data, but as we do charts and pivot tables and functions, that sort of thing, we will be working with the 2.3 million rows, right? So we're not limited to this. This is a preview. This is to let you know what your data looks like. Once we actually start writing formulas and doing things within that, we're going to be acting on 2.3 million rows of data. So the first thing I want to show is up at this top bar, we've got charts, pivot table, functions, extract, calculated columns, and column stats. These are all things that these are all tools that we can use to actually act on the data in our preview here, okay? So if I hit function, and I'm gonna do, let's do count unique. It's gonna say, hey, do you wanna put this in a new sheet? It's not going to put it in the same sheet you're working on. The reason being is this is a preview, right? We can't edit the data that's on this sheet here. We don't want to, because we want to make sure that that information is current and live in BigQuery. That's our source of truth. This spreadsheet's how we visualize things within it. So I'm going to hit create, and if you notice, I've got a formula up here that says count unique, bike share trips, and then I've got a lot of options here. These are actually my 10 columns that I can choose from. So if I do, let's see, station name maybe? Yeah, we can do station ID. And I just hit enter here, what it's going to do is it's going to write that formula, and then I need to say apply. And why does it ask for apply? Well, we want to make sure that this is the thing you want to do, because what it's actually going to do is run a query on the back end and then visualize this data for you. So, I mean, this is not going to be an overly impressive thing, but here we go. We got 107 right there. All right. So that's how many bike stations are throughout the city of Austin, according to this data set. And we can do more with that, right? So if you noticed here, we've got function, and we've got all these functions we can look from. We don't need to go back to function every time and create a new sheet. So if I come here, and I just hit enter, and I say, let's do a COUNTIF. And then I'm going to do bike. So I just start typing bike share, right? Because that's got all of the columns that I want to be looking at. And let's do duration. I hit tab there to complete and have it fill out that entire line there. And now what I'm going to do is, let's say, less than 30. So what this is doing is it's saying, hey, count if the bike share trip duration minutes, give me a total number for how many of those rides lasted less than 30 minutes. That's what this formula is doing. So it's actually going to look at all 2.3 million rows of data and come up with a number for me. So I need to go ahead and hit apply again. But there you go. There's our number, right? So we just went through a huge amount of data. And I know this is a simple function, but you can use it with other functions as well, and it can be nested, right? So the power of Sheets really is at your hands here, and you can do quite a lot of cool things. And then because it's on a normal sheet, we can change the formatting and make it look however we want to, right? So any formula that you're used to using, you can now query a much larger data set on the back end. Let's go take a look at charts, because charts works exactly how you expect it to. But we'll take a look. So I'm going to create a new sheet again. It's going to bring me here. And the first one I wanted to do was a pie chart. So let me go find a pie chart. All right, so for my label, let's see, I'm going to do subscriber type. Subscriber type, pull that into the label, right? So it's drag and drop. Over here on the right-hand side, those are all of our columns that we have available to us, right? So drag and drop it in as you need. And then for the value, let's do duration minutes. And then let's just show, because there's a lot of subscriber types, I actually want to filter this down a little bit further. So I'm going to add a filter. And I'm going to filter it by subscriber type. And then I'm going to come down here again. So I've got a filter in. It's showing all items right now. If I open that up, click Add Filter one more time. It's now retrieved from that 2.3 million rows of data all the different subscriber types we have. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit clear. I'm just going to pick the top 5. All right, we have a pretty steep drop off after the top 5. So let's just see the top 5. Going to hit OK. And you notice as I'm doing this, this can be difficult and it's not what you're used to. My chart is not updating as I'm going through these filters, right? Because we haven't told it to run the query yet. So it is something that you'll need to get used to if you're working with connected sheets. But at any point in time, if you want to see your results, you can come hit apply over here on the left. They also have it over here on the right for you. So I'll hit apply. And there we go. That's giving us the top 5. And this is showing, let's see, duration minutes, a sum of the duration minutes. So we can see, hey, you know, our student members are taking up 14.5% of the time out of this pool in duration minutes. Like that's how long they're riding the bikes for. All right, let's do another chart just so we can see it again. So I'll come back, always coming back to this slide here. I'm gonna hit chart, create new, and then let's do a column. Oh, we're on a column, very good. All right, so let's do start station name in our x-axis. And then for the series, let's do duration minutes again. And we can actually go ahead and filter that. Let's do an average here. Then I'm going to add another filter. And let's filter by start station names again. I'm going to grab those top 5 again. Clear all. So now instead of subscriber type, we're looking at start station names. And we can see what are our most popular station names and what's that average ride, or this, let's see, we're doing a sum right now. Oh, we're doing an average. So what's the average ride out of each one of these station names, right? So keep in mind, this chart doesn't look any different than the charts you've worked with in the past. The difference now is we're working on a huge data set, and it can be a data set that your team here at Utah can help you get in. All right, so I hate pivot tables, but I've been told they're loved. So we'll show a pivot table here. So again, I came back to this sheet here. I'm going to create. And our same pivot table creator, right? So very familiar. You're going to see it again and again. It's the same. All right, so for the pivot table, I want to do start time. Let's do start time in the rows. And let's group that by hour. All right. And now let's do column start time. Let's do another start time in the columns, but this time we're going to go ahead and group by day of the week. Very good. We're going to keep that ascending. Good, good, good. And now let's add a value. And I think we'll do duration. So there's our duration. And then because we've got a ton of information here, I am going to continue to filter. So I'll just do the top 5 again. Just so that this doesn't get out of hand. We'll hit apply. There we go. Close this out so we can see our data a little bit better. But if you notice over here, start time of 0, right? So start of the day, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way through 23. We've got days of the week. And to make this even more user-friendly, we will highlight all that data set, and we're going to go to Format, Conditional Formatting, and I'm just going to put a color scale on it really quickly and hit Done. So really quickly, we're able to see, hey, when are our bikes being used? And I can visually see when our bikes are being used, right? So in the wee hours of the morning, not being used a lot. That makes sense. But it looks like we have a lot of traffic on Saturday, right? So Saturday is our busiest day for our bike usage. We were able to gain that insight really quickly with the pivot table, and we just did some conditional formatting, and look, that looks great. Let's do another one for kicks and giggles. All right, for this one, let's see, I've got subscriber type that I want to put in. So we're going to put that into rows. And I'm actually going to order by descending this time around. And then instead of showing all of our output, I'm just going to say 10. And then let's see, I want to do start station name for my column. I'm going to sort that by descending as well. And I'm going to limit that to 10. Okay. And then values, let's throw in duration. So we're dragging and dropping, and on the back end, as soon as we hit apply, it's going to create a pivot table for us. There we go. So it queried all that data and brought it in for us, right? So pivot tables work the exact same way. Okay, so maybe we want to work with the data and we don't want to come in and say, hey, bike share trips. Maybe we actually want to extract data. We want to be able to pull it out of BigQuery as it is and have raw data to work with. We can do so by hitting extract. We're going to put it into a new sheet. We can also do existing sheets for all of these options. But if you notice, I've got options now, right? So if you want to pull raw data out of BigQuery and work with it that way without it being connected, we can go here and I can actually choose which columns I want to select, right? So trip ID, I'm not that interested, but subscriber type, bike type, maybe start time, name, duration minutes. I've decided those are the ones that interest me. So I'm actually going to pull that, and then we can add more filters. We can sort how we want to. But the most important thing here is we can now pull up to 25,000 rows of your data as you have it filtered directly into sheets as raw data. So let me show you what that looks like. I'm not going to do 25,000. Actually, we can go to 100,000 now. I'm just going to pull 10 just for fun. And I'm going to run that extract. And if you notice, it grabbed all of the columns I wanted. It's given me 10 rows of data. But I can do with this what I want, right? So you're now not in BigQuery, you're working directly out of Sheets. So if you have a situation in which you want to manipulate data and you need to pull it out of BigQuery, and for whatever reason, you can extract it. So pull it in from Sheets, you decide, hey, I need it out, you extract it directly from BigQuery into Sheets here, and you've got raw data. I'm going to show a calculated column next. So a calculated column, this is really powerful. And when you first see it, you're going to say, no, that's not all that useful to me. I promise if you get in here and do this on your own at some point, a calculated column is going to be massive. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up a calculated column, and I'm just going to say bike. I'm going to say bike type. So over here, we've got our columns that we can choose from, and we've got our functions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do just a concat. So I picked a function. If you notice, I've got a red exclamation mark. Right now, this function doesn't work as I have it set up because I haven't given it anything to work with. right? So it will let you know that's not going to work even before you try and hit apply. I can't hit add right now. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, oh, I'm going to click in to the middle of the parentheses. I'm going to say, give me bike ID, and let's do a comma, and give me bike type. So I've now written a formula that it likes. But I didn't give it a name that it liked. Okay, so it likes everything. So what that's doing is it's going to grab the bike ID, the bike type, put them into one cell together, right? So this example, probably not overly useful for you guys, but just know you can have a calculated column, and when I hit add, it's going to take a second because it's got a lot of data. But if you notice over here, this column is now a new column. Oh, let's see. Yeah, I don't know. So we've got a calculated column now, right? And this calculation probably doesn't mean a lot to you guys, but if you notice, it is now part of the original sheet, which means if I come into, pivot table, let's just start anew, that bike is now searchable. So that is now a row that you can enact, or a column that you can act on actively. So that's something that you've created. It is now there working as if it's in BigQuery, and you can have 2.3 million rows is what we're working on here. It did that formula for us really quickly, and we're going to be able to show everything as we need it. All right.
So we have a question.
Yep.
And it is from, it says, is the extracted data linked to actual data? Means if there are changes in the BigQuery data, will it change in extracted data?
So if it is extracted, so if we use this functionality and extract data, that is no longer linked to BigQuery in any way. And I'll show you what I mean. I think this will be a good way to actually show it. So up here, we have refresh options, right? So how often do we want this spreadsheet to look into BigQuery and refresh our data so that we always have live data? So I'm going to open up refresh options. This is showing, I can literally come in, and if you notice, function 1 or pivot table 1, those are all things we built today. I can actually go update just that pivot table, and it'll only update that section. Or we can go ahead and come down to the bottom, hit refresh all. It'll go back, query that data set again, give you the newest information. Now, if you want to schedule a refresh, you can do it here, or we can say, hey, let's set this up. Decide how often you need fresh data, right? So maybe you run a weekly report and you want it to update on Monday, right? You can tell it that exactly, right? Like repeats every day, tell it when to repeat. So maybe you get in at the office at 8, so let's do 7 to 8 start date, and then we can actually run advanced and do some more information with that. So now what this is going to do, excuse me, if I do every 7 days, it's going to start running every 7 days in the morning before you get into work. You will have fresh data as you open this up. Now, the reason I wanted to show that as an example, I'm actually going to turn that off. The reason I wanted to show that as an example is that is separate from the extract function, where extract, literally, you're grabbing all the data you've sorted and decide you need, and you're putting it as raw data somewhere else. So you don't ever have to refresh this data, but the advantage of working with connected sheets is to have the most up-to-date data. So I would recommend, if this is something you're using regularly, set up a schedule so that you know you have fresh data.
Can this extracted table be linked to a Looker Studio dashboard?
Yes, it can. Because it's there in Sheets, the same connection that you use for any spreadsheet in Looker Studio can be used with this extract sheet as well, right? So you'll have to go through and do a couple extra clicks because you need to find the right actual sheet, But yes, absolutely. Okay. So we talked about everything other than, I think, column stats. So let's look at column stats really quickly. So if I click column stats, up here at the top, it's got column, right? So I can choose any one of my columns. You can have a lot more columns than 10, but that's what I've got in my data set. So if I choose subscriber type, this is kind of a wizard in reality, because all you're doing is saying, hey, look at this column that I'm telling you to look at, and just give me some useful information, right? So any one of these, I didn't do anything here, right? All I did was click column stats, and then it's just giving me recommendations of useful features or useful things that you can do with it, right? So if you want to insert a pivot table, and least is not that useful, insert pivot table, boom. So it's literally going through that whole process that we talked about earlier, but it was just there in column stats for us, and we've got a new pivot table, right? So oftentimes, if I'm working here, I do start with column stats because it's already looking at our data, and it might have insight that would take me 30 minutes to come up with on my own. So just pop it open, take a look. If you've got a column that you're really interested in, select that column, take a look, and see if there's something interesting. There isn't always, I'll be honest, but I would say 60% of the time I end up actually using one of these, and the other 40% of the time I say, not what I'm looking for. And that's still pretty useful in my mind. So that is kind of everything that I wanted to show you with connected sheets. The things I really want to harp on is this data is coming from BigQuery, right? So it can always be up to date if you want it to be. We can, I think it's 10 billion rows of data is what we can work on directly out of connected sheets, which is just a phenomenal amount of data, right? Like we've expanded the use case of spreadsheets so many times over by connecting to BigQuery here. So just know that the scale is incredible, and these functions are things that you've used in the past, and so they should be familiar to you. And it looks like we got another question.
They're in the Gemini test group, and they're asking, will Gemini work with BigQuery?
So that's a good question. Yes and no is kind of my answer, because I did some playing with this as well. I was curious myself. None of these column stats, collected column, those sorts of things are going to be overly useful because that's a separate tool set. But you would still be able to ask questions of the data here. The issue is it's not connected to BigQuery natively, right? So it's able to see this 500 rows of data that it previews for you, but it's not able to see back on the back end into BigQuery. So right now I would say, yeah, it's useful if you have extracted data, but it's not overly useful if you're trying to query your 2.3 million rows.
Hi, everyone. So for the State of Utah Enterprise, there is a couple of complications. So first of all, you are definitely welcome to use your personal Gmail account to fiddle with BigQuery to start it. Now, if you would like to use it for work purposes, if you want to start uploading data that are related to your position at the state of Utah, you need to come talk to us, because we will need to create a project for you. And yeah, essentially we would need to create a project for you, and that's how you get access. Unfortunately, we don't have a sandbox set up for this workshop. That's probably something for the future iteration. So yeah, for now, unfortunately, we're your gatekeeper for that. But please shoot me an email, and I'll see how I can help you.
Perfect. And there couldn't be better gatekeepers, if we're honest with ourselves. Yeah, so when she says, hey, we need to set up a project, basically Google Cloud Platform, which BigQuery is part of, works on projects, right? So we would need to set up a project to tie the billing into a billing ID that works for the state, right? So there's some complications on the back end. And then, but once that's set up, that's honestly the hardest part. And then the demo that we saw earlier shows you, hey, you can literally have a CSV uploaded into BigQuery, and now we're working with it in minutes. And keep in mind, yes, you can absolutely use BigQuery and SQL natively directly out of Google Cloud Platform. But that's hard, right? Not all of us know SQL. I pretend like I know SQL, and then I connect it to connected sheets because I can solve almost all my problems there every time anyways. But if you do want to get data, reach out to the team. They will help you get that project set up. And once that's set up, you're off and running.
Now my team is, we are focused on architecture, so a slightly higher level, but we can definitely point you in the right direction. We also have access to Cloud Skills Boost, which is a fantastic learning platform. We can hook you up with some learning credits that you can use to learn more about the tool itself, get some tips on like doing data analytics with Google Cloud tools. So yeah, once again, talk to us and we'll try to get you on your way and on the path to success. My background personally is in data science and database development, so I can offer you some tips once we get chatting. But yeah, we'll do our best.
So I'm going to repeat that question because I didn't have it going through. So this one was from Trevor, and it was, if we aren't super great with data analysis, is your team able to help us get something set up? And then we can work on looking into our questions on our own from there. Like if we know the data is there, we just don't know how to get it into the software. And that is the question that was just answered.
In Sheets is expanding, right? It can go into much larger scales as long as we're tied into BigQuery. So really excited to have had you guys here today. If we don't have any other questions, I'm also excited to get off this stage. Okay. Well, with that being said, I want to thank everyone, especially the people who came into the office. It's a huge crowd here. You would be just astonished at the numbers we were able to drive. But it sounds like we had a good turnout on the web call as well. So thank you guys so much for coming out. Hopefully you learned something today. Hopefully it sparked interest in BigQuery or how we can connect it into Sheets. We're really trying to do this video series to give you guys tools that you can use. So help guide us, right? If we missed the mark today, let us know and tell us where to go, because we want to keep doing these sorts of things and we want to show you all sorts of different technologies and different ideas to think about how we use Google Workspace and the tools that are natively supported by it. So with that being said, I'm Ryan Allred. Thanks to the Edge team for putting this on. We couldn't be more excited to do it. Thanks, guys.